I watched about maybe 12 years ago. There was a young girl in the Washington D.C. area. She's at Penn State now. She was in the fourth grade when I met her and her parents named Kiyomi McMiller. She's in the third or fourth grade. When I first saw Kiyomi, and I'm good friends with her mom and dad, when I first saw her as a third or fourth grader, this kid was the best player on our eighth grade team.
Wow.
And I knew, she was little, and so the idea was like, well, it's against her. You're risking her safety, having her play as a third grader with these eighth graders. But when you see her, when you see the kid, you already know is that her potential is way bigger than what I think about a game right now. I'm not worried about her capacity to do well with these eighth graders. I see that where she is now as a third grader, when she becomes an eighth grader, she's going to be way past those kids.
Tony, it's all about the love of the game.
Welcome to another episode of For the Love of the Game. We have two experts here, and we are just looking forward to sharing their wisdom, their wealth of knowledge with our listeners today. We have Coach Sheen and Coach Tinsley with us today. And gentlemen, before we get started, we only have one judgmental question. And of course, we want to welcome you. We thank you. This is the only tough question we're going to ask you today. Coach Sheen, we'll start with you. How and when did you fall in love with basketball?
Well, I mean, originally I'm from Newark, New Jersey, grew up. I was actually a baseball guy, big New York Yankees fan. That's all I played in Jersey. So when I moved here to Richmond, everybody didn't play pickup baseball like up north, right? So trying to play pickup baseball, that didn't work. And Collegiate actually reached out to my aunt about me back in middle school, but it was a hefty amount to go there. So my aunt said, you got to find another sport. So that other sport was basketball. My brother was naturally good in basketball, so I started playing. Wasn't more of a scorer, more of a defensive player, high IQ player, played in Armstrong High School here in Richmond, Virginia. And then growing up, had a kid, right? Then naturally she started playing sports. She kind of went into basketball. I think my love kind of grew right when, I turned down a really nice job for my daughter to say, hey, Dad, I want you there through this journey and ask a fifth grader, hey, you gonna really do this? But she wanted me there. So I turned down that job and I was just with her ever since. And really the love of the game kind of grew with her. And naturally me helping kids, it just expanded. A lot of people, in this business, they say, hey man, I know when Sierra leave, are you gonna stop doing what you do? It's like feel almost kind of addicted to it a little bit just by helping people. And also I have a 9-year-old as well. So looking to kind of come back up with her, trying to use some of the knowledge that I use to help some of the kids get to college. And my, two kids, Ty, she's at SMU University. That's my goddaughter, but I call her my kid. And Sierra, she's at Sacred Heart University. So that's how I kind of fell in love with basketball.
Amen. Praise. That sounds like my journey right there. That sounds like I fell in love when Mike hit the shot. And I thought I knew basketball. When Mike hit that Cavalier shot, I thought I knew. But then I kind of drifted away because I was like, man, you weren't a real player. And, I drifted away. But then them daughters, man, them kids, man, that you love your babies, they'll pull you back in.
Yes, sir. Yes,
my
sir.
babies pulled me back in. Coach Tinsley, how and when did you fall in love with basketball?
Man, I tell you, when you guys talking about those daughters, it's telling me something about little girls, women. I fell in love in 1993. I was a junior in high school, and I had a sister that was going into the ninth grade, and every high school in the metropolitan area in Maryland, Virginia, DC wanted her to come to their school. It took us to a little private school out in Frederick, Maryland called St. John's at Prospect Hall. And what I didn't know when I got there, that was going to be the birth of my career. I was exposed at that time with her transferring into this private school at St. John's in Frederick, Maryland, that they had a nationally ranked high school basketball program ran by a guy named Stu Vetter, assisted by a guy named Kevin Sutton. These guys are legendary guys in the DC area in basketball at this time. And what they were doing as running a program had birthed this lifestyle for me. I was so impressed as being a hood kid from the inner city of Washington, D.C., coming to this rural area in this community and seeing a high school team that was built up of so much diversity with kids from Africa, from Lithuania, from Spain, from DC, from Baltimore, from West Virginia. Just the combination of that diversity and the standard of excellence that was required to be competitive in the top in the country just exposed me to something I had never even thought I would see before that as a young kid. And from that time frame, it led to what I wanted to do. I was the member of the family that was it. I had a sister, a younger sister is a WNBA player, and I had a younger brother that was a high-ranking Division I player. I wasn't neither one of those. So this was my lane. This introduced me to my lane. And so at that point in time, this basketball just became the center of my life in so many aspects. And it's led me to do a lot of things over my career with that.
Today, our podcast honors the life and legacy of Coach George B. Lancaster Jr., a legendary basketball coach and educator who left an indelible mark on the lives of countless students, athletes, and colleagues. Born in Durham, North Carolina, and raised in Chase City, Virginia, Coach Land excelled in sports, playing football, basketball, and baseball at West End High School. As a standout point guard at Virginia State University, he earned CIAA All-Tournament honors and was inducted into the VSU Hall of Fame. Coach Land's coaching career spanned decades, with notable victories at Huguenot High School and Highland Springs High School, where he led the Springers to 2 Virginia AAA championships in 2003 and 2007. A true leader and mentor, Coach Land was known for his ability to encourage and captivate his players, bringing out the best in them. His commitment to humility, inspiration, and building confidence in others earned him the respect and admiration of his peers and students. As a testament to his legacy, Coach Land's influence extends far beyond the basketball court, touching the lives of everyone he met. We'll remember Coach George B. Lancaster Jr. as a legend who leaves a legacy of love, and his impact will continue to inspire future generations. Wow. Now let's fast forward a little bit. From that point up until now, what have you been doing in basketball, and how has your life changed, and how has how has your basketball bio evolved?
Well, I mean, it kind of was the blueprint to start. I started initially right out of high school. I went to college, went to community college, and I started working for the federal government at the same time. And at that time, I just really realized I wanted to be around basketball. So I had an opportunity out in Virginia at a private school that was taken over by the principal of my school that brought my family to Frederick, Maryland. So I went down there to coach part-time while I was in school with that guy. And it led me to coaching. In those years, I was at that school for 10 years. In those 10 years, I was a part of a boys program that had been consecutively the second best team in the state of Virginia behind Oak Hill Academy, playing against kids like the likes of Carmelo Anthony and, so many different players that Oak Hill's had during our tenure. But kind of really honing my skills how to run a program at that time. And then after 5 years with that, I switched over to go to the girls, and that's when I built a nationally ranked program in the Washington, D.C. area. Well, we were ranked nationally in the top 5-10 in the country for like 3 years straight. I left there to go to college at University of South Florida to help as a video coordinator down there. And from that point, I stayed back in coaching. I went back into coaching in high school again, started on boys. And over my time frame, I'm skimming through it, but over those years, I've been able to send probably about 150 kids to college on scholarship. I've had about 10 or 11 kids that have played, men and women that have played professionally in both leagues, men and women, in my career. And the whole point of it was the whole generation behind it was doing the same, offering the same opportunity that I was offered and my family was offered coming out of Southeast Washington, D.C. I built it through international kids. Out of that 100 and some players, probably 50 of those kids are international students that came to live in the United States during that time. So something that's become very common back in the 90s and the early 2000s was we were crucified for it.
Yeah, amen.
But and now I'm currently the chief of staff at Utah State University out in Utah, Logan, Utah, and it's just been a full journey. Basketball is from those early days in '93 has led me to where I'm at today.
Amen. 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 Now, Coach Sheen, can you share your bio from the time that basketball captured you up until now? Can you share your basketball journey and all that you've been through?
Yes, sir. So I guess rewind back when my daughter's in fourth grade, that's when we kind of went all in. And a good friend of mine that I played high school basketball with, O'Kelly Lilly, his daughter Charmaine Lilly played for Cosby High School. They won a couple of championships. She played at North Carolina A&T. I said, look, I want to kind of take my daughter to the next level. So he hooked me up with a guy named Mike Davis. So I actually took her over there to Mike Davis, and he watched her run up and down the court for like 3 plays. He said, "Oh yeah, that's a Division I basketball play." I said, "Dude, you looked at her for three plays." He said, "Look, she athletic. I'm not saying she's gonna go to UConn, but I can tell she has the athleticism. If you stick with me, man, I'm telling you, I'll help you a lot." And it's crazy. I've been with him ever since, right? So I'm the associate head coach at Tpls Christian Academy. We're a full scale prep school. We've produced countless Division I athletes on the girls' side. We're actually growing our boys program right now. We have a post grad team, a high school team, and a girls varsity team. I do contributing writer for Prep Hoop Girls in the state of Virginia. We do things. We try to recognize girls with write ups. We try to host events, and we do a comprehensive ranking service, which has been really good over the past 5 years. I think in the state of Virginia, probably averages around like 30 Division I players, other than the kids that kind of sign late. And when we try to do our rankings, we don't just look at it like, points per game. That I always try to say, hey, let's go for who can probably play at the next level, as far as matrix skills, height, position. Um, and another thing I do, I'm actually an associate director of FBC Havoc. We are AAU organization. We play on the UA Rise circuit. We have teams from 8th grade all the way to 17U. So I kind of got my hands in a lot, right? And my thing is with doing this, I always like to just keep good relationships, right? Because AAU is so competitive and AAU is so transactional now, right? And when it comes to you in the same state, man, everybody's kind of almost chasing after the same kid. I always try to have a different philosophy as far as recruiting because I have to recruit kids to come to our academic program because, hey, you have to pay a tuition, right? So I also recruit kids to come to our AAU program. And I like to be transparent with our recruitment because my thing is I'm better off having a kid that's going to be with me for 5 years instead of 5 months, right? So it's all about like, if I see a kid that I know that can play in our program, about getting in front of the mom, dad, or both parents early and say, hey, look, this is what we want. Obviously when these kids get older, they want something. So we try to come to a transparent agreement. If I think a kid's a starter, I say, hey, I try to do it like a general manager. Hey, look, if I think you're a starter, I'm gonna say you're the starter. It's just your job to hold the job, right? I won't turn around a great player, even if I, had this conversation with you. And I always had the same spiel to the parents, so we're always on the same page. So I do a lot. I'm not on the boy side at all. So if somebody has a boy basketball player, I have to know him to probably look at the game. I could probably watch a 4th grade girls basketball game. So just fully entrenched on this girl side, and that's what I've been doing over the past. Now it's going on 12 years of doing this.
Wow, wow, wow.
Hey, did you know there's this little button? It's right here on the video. And it reads SUBSCRIBE. And when you click that little button, an angel gets its wings. For real.
Now, is that the same organization that it's at, like in the basement of Rocket?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That
Yes.
is awesome. That is
Yes. So
awesome.
yeah, a typical day, as far as like TPLS, we go from 7 to 3 every day. We go from 7 to 9 study hall. We're 100% online. Um, from we go from 7 to 9 study hall. 9 to 11 is practice. 12 to 12:45 is lunch. We have weight room in the midst of that as well, and we have another training in the evening from 2 to 3:30. So and I tell people we're like IMG, but we're not IMG, right? So Our kids averages about 3.5 hours a day on court workout. So we typically get a kid that's a 5'11" center and try to turn them to a 5'11" wing. Most cases when you switch in positions, it takes a year, like straight up, especially with the girls, right? Mental, physical, understand how to play offense and defense. Like even with my daughter, both of my daughters attended the academy. My daughter was a 5'8" power forward coming in, right? So she had to go from an eighth grader reclassing and going playing some of the top guards in the country as a kid figuring out how to play guard. So we try to, and I think that's how we've been successful as far as sending girls to college, because we do a lot more working out during a day than the typical kid does in a week. And you got to really kind of get your body and train your body to kind of go to that next level.
Okay. Okay. Now, Coach Fowler and I play like a good cop, bad cop here on this program. He is Alonzo on training day when it comes to basketball, where he's kind of been around and he knows everything. And then I'm the rookie who doesn't know anything. I'm the knucklehead. So someone in my workspace. They came to me and they said, Tony, you hang around and do a lot of basketball, and your kids involved. What is the thing that you look for? Like what would you say? That it means you have a scholarship athlete. Now, y'all might laugh at a brother because Coach Fowler, you have me humbled once again because you got some scholars up in here. You got some guys that really know their stuff. But ignorant Tony, who's not on y'all's level, and I admit it, I told him, and it maybe just because it might be something that my kid doesn't have quite yet. What really impresses me when I see athletes is explosiveness. How like that first step and the explosiveness on how fast they can move. Like that's something that to me it can't always be taught, and it's something that sometimes or it can be taught, but it's a lot of work to get it taught. Tell me how wrong I am, and I don't mind being embarrassed. And then also, what do you all look for when it comes to an athlete that really helps you understand, like, ooh, I got something here, or what are your thoughts on that?
That's a tricky question for me. I mean, I think some kids, when you see initially, when you've been coaching for a while, you see those some attributes in the kid, whether their athleticism or their skill set, or even sometimes how they walk on the court. Sometimes I don't even have to see them play, but you can kind of see the type of body that they have, the type of athlete that they are, their length, or even just when we get to particular skill things. But the game, when we talk about being a Division I athlete, is changing rapidly now. So being a Division I athlete is different than what it was 10, 15 years ago. I mean, we're in the land of NIL now. And so it's being a young kid trying to aspire to be a Division I athlete, there's a whole lot of more hurdles than they were before in doing this. So, a lot of the things I look for over time is when you watch with a kid is just to kind of see their work ethic, how hard they work at it, how disciplined they are, what kind of structure that they have around themselves. Because, it takes a little bit more than just being athletic and skilled enough to be at this level. What their mind is like. Coach talked about their study hard and how he's structuring his day at his school right now is what we do to prepare us for where we are right now. And do you have the capacity to do those things? Are you smart enough to understand the game? Not just about your skill set on the game. And so it's really about watching the kid become a student of the game. I was fortunate. I mean, I've been coaching girls and guys for a long time, but over the last 10 years, I would say been more guys up until now, just taking this women's position. But I watched about maybe 12 years ago, there was a young girl in the Washington, D.C. area that she's at Penn State now. She was in the fourth grade when I met her and her parents named Kiyomi McMiller. She's in the third, fourth grade. When I first saw Kiyomi, and I'm good friends with her mom and dad, when I first saw her as a third or fourth grader, this kid was the best player on our eighth grade team.
Wow.
And I knew, she was little. And so the idea was like, well, it's against her, you're risking her safety, having her play as a third grader with these eighth graders. But when you see her, when you see the kid, you already know is that her potential is way bigger than what I think about a game right now. I'm not worried about her capacity to do well with these eighth graders. I see that where she is now as a third grader, when she becomes an eighth grader, she's going to be way past those kids. So some kids, it's easy to see that this kid is not only just a Division I player, sometimes these kids are generational players.
Wow.
And that changes, And so, but I mean, I think right now with the market that we're in, we're talking about wanting to be a Division I player. It's about how good you want to be at your craft, how hard you're going to work, because it is very hard to be a Division I player now in this day. It is very hard. It is no longer college basketball as it used to be. This is semi-professional basketball, and so it is a difference.
Amen. Amen. Coach Sheen, what is something that you see or that you look for when it comes to a Division I athlete player?
Yeah, so being that I'm recruiting and evaluating at a young age, I guess for kids that come to Tpls or our AAU organization, or even potential kids that can probably go to that next level, I think the number one thing that I look at is probably athleticism. Can they run? Can they drop their hips? Could they, slide, play defense? Because I think some kids are super athletic, but they don't probably have any skills. So I think what we do at TPLS, we kind of have a system that, man, if you're athletic and you can put 3.5 hours a day on court, you have really no choice but to get better. And one thing you can't do is to teach the athleticism part, especially with a girl. It's all about having them get the lifestyle part of it. That's the thing that holds a lot of kids back. A lot of kids can play basketball, but if you don't get this thing down from a lifestyle perspective, you just won't make it. And the thing is, I live with 2 Division I basketball athletes, right? And I didn't have to tell them, to get up to go to workouts. They were on. I mean, these girls was like 15 to 16 years old on their own doing stuff without me telling them. Obviously, I always had this motto being player-led and coach-supported, because it's only but so many hours in a day that I can do as far as, train you, coach you, help you get recruited, all that stuff. So I think from a parent and a kid perspective, you have to take take a lot of that responsibility. And I always tell parents and kids, like, the kid is the CEO and the parent is the chief operating officer, and we're just supporting everybody, because I think the issue and the danger of in getting in this business, a lot of parents just rely on the coaches to do everything. And that's why sometimes you get sold a dream instead of just upfront be like, hey, look, the number one thing we can't do is teach our kids sacrifice. That's one thing they got to learn. As a parent, we'll go on the other end. If it don't work out, we're like, all right, what's the next thing we have to go through? But for a kid, they have to learn and understand that. And I think trying to change these kids' mindsets, not at 15 to 16. Now you got to do it when they start to get in the 6th grade, as far as, hey, how can I help you guys level up and play better competition, or play at a higher level? And it's hard for a lot of parents, because you got some kids that are probably the best 6th grader on their team, the best 7th grader on their team. And now you got to say, hey, look, let's reset and try to get them ready to get recruited. It's like, man, it's so early. But that time comes by so fast. Like Keomi Miller, she played for Life Center. And I remember seeing her play at She Got Game last year. And on the highlights, this dribble. She could do that all day long. But I seen her dominate the game from a point guard perspective, like not having a lot of dribbles, going to the basket, shooting a 3-ball. I was just like, oh man, she's the best point guard in the country, outside of all the highlights that I seen. I was just, so that makes me appreciate when I see kids for the first time, because you get this notion like, hey, they're just only one player, but their game is much broader than And just hearing Coach tell a story about when he saw her in 4th grade, which is awesome, know that she's grown and gotten better, and she started from an early age.
Okay. All right. Coach Fowler, I wanted you to give you an opportunity to jump in. Any questions or thoughts that you have?
Tune in, like and subscribe for the love of the game with Tony and David.
Well, no, I mean, I one of the things, I knew when I was thinking about Brooklyn Brown, when I was listening to them talk about what they were looking for, I was thinking about Brooklyn Brown, who's the number 1 player in the 2029 class.
Yeah, 29. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember going into the gym in Rocket one day, Tony, and I was sitting there. She didn't have a great practice, but I was just watching how she moved and how she handled the ball and just how she looked more fluid than anybody else in the gym. And it was kind of and I turned to my wife and I said, she's the best player in the gym right now. And this is before the rankings. This is the first time I've ever seen her. And I said, and she didn't have a great practice. So my wife's kind of looking at me like, I don't know about all that. And I said, but I kept telling her, like, just the way she moves, the way she handles the ball, how she gets to the basket, how she makes it a point to get to her spots on the floor. I mean, I saw all of those things, and I think when you're looking at a kid, a lot of times it's the natural, fluidity of how they move and play the game. Which is one of the points. Whenever I was starting with Italy, I was trying to make sure that she wasn't pulling from the hip, shooting from the hip, and that her handles and that her shot and everything was fluid. And it wasn't, we're not worried about the makes as much as we're worried about the form, and we're worried about, doing it the right way. And I said that in an earlier episode too, Tony, is that was more important to me, because now when people do see her, they see that it's more fluid and they see that she's not gunning from the hip and doing all of that. And I want to say that helps. Maybe you guys can let me know, but I want to say that helps, because when she plays, I feel like that's the first thing people notice. Even if she's having a bad game and the shots ain't falling, I still feel like that matters, because anytime I've ever watched any players play, those are the ones I typically look at and pull out are the ones that it looks the fluidity of how they play, just how fluid they are. You guys agree, disagree? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I look at, obviously, sometimes when I see that, what you see in those things, I think about this kid, how much work are they putting in, how they train the game. I mean, so much of this to me is how we would approach our career, is that, we have to take advantage of resources to get better in our career. We have to be able to continue always learning to be better in our career. And the expectation is to be good at your job. And so you're teaching them these habits now. And so I think those things are important when you see some of the younger kids, just kind of like not just looking at their skill set. I mean, my sister was the number one player in the country coming out of high school. But she was Allen Iverson when it came to practice. What, practice? You mean practice? I mean, she didn't learn how to become a pro and to practice until she got to the Sparks with Lisa Leslie, and that's when she kind of grew up in that aspect. But so sometimes I have to see past some of the skill set and realize, see, what are the habits behind it? What are the lessons behind those things? Who's the group who's motivating? How are the parents? That's a big part of this. We look at parents like you to see kind of where you guys are, how your direction of leading your kids, because that all contributes to you being a Division I athlete.
Okay. Coach Sheen, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, me and David, I was just having that conversation with David too last week at a showcase. I was like, look, I'm more inclined to recruit a kid that has two parents at home. Nothing against a single parent household. It's just, I think it makes everything a little bit more easy as far as coaching, putting that responsibility on the kid, because like what you're doing early with your daughter, David, is teaching her good habits, right? So when she get older, even as a young kid, she already had the habits, because by the time they get, like, you talk about Brooklyn Brown, that's when you can see a good basketball player when they have an off day, right? She hasn't even touched high school. She already has a college frame. She's into a $250,000 business, right, at 14 years old. Yeah. So I think it's never too early to preach the business side to the parents and the kid, because on the way to your journey, on your journey, is going to be a lot of hurt feelings, right? There's going to be a lot of hard coaching moments that, this kid got to understand and learn, not just from a basketball standpoint, a mental standpoint, yes, to understand, hey, I got a bad 5-game stretch, bad 5 shooting ball stretch. I still got to put good film out on the court. So I think that's the most important thing when it comes to just recruiting. And I tell people this, Coach Mack hate when I say this about my daughter, and I can say it because she's my kid. Sierra was an average basketball player. She was 5'8". That's a guard. You know, when you're 5'9" and below, you come a dime a dozen. But it was a certain way that she had to do to get recruited, as far as building up her resume, obviously having good habits. But one thing I do give her credit: every time a coach that looked at her the first time, you know, every time they saw her the second time, she got better. The third time, the fourth time, and a lot of her offers came in her last year. But everybody like, oh man, you know, she's killing it. But I'm like, man, she was talking to 30 coaches over her past, you know, 5 years. So I mean, you know, I got to wear two hats at that point. I'm crazy dad and I'm coach, right? So I got to be like, and she's supposed to got them offers, right? But then I saw how the process was, and you know, most of her offers that came through, there was relationships over a 3-year period.
Yeah.
You know, you had a couple of ones that saw her late, either high school or AAU. But I think if we teach our kids good habits just from a mental standpoint and understand like you're competing not with just your teammate to probably get a starting job, you're competing with a lot of kids across the country that come now get this Division I scholarship.
Okay.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for the love of the game.
Now, Coach Tinsley, and I'm gonna take this to Coach Sheen as well. But we'll start off with Coach Tinsley. There's a lot of parents that are watching this podcast, and I've had a hard time finding this balance. Because I started off as a psycho parent, and then, you know, I saw the college coaches kind of give warnings like, hey, you ain't gonna recruit your kid if you're a psycho parent. So then I dialed down my psycho parent behavior. But then at the same time, I've also seen parents who do all the behavior, they act nice and they're always pleasant. I've seen some of their kids get taken advantage of. So I don't want my kid treated like an NPC video character as well, you know. So what advice do you give to parents about being good agents for their kids, where you don't come off as a psycho parent, but at the same time you hold your ground and the organization knows that you're 10 toes down for your kid, but you're not a problem? What advice do you give for parents who are trying to strike that balance?
Well, it's always a very tough balance. I mean, it's your children. You know, it's nothing more important to you than your children, and you want your children's best interests at heart. Sometimes the misconstrued things go with parents is because it's a lack of understanding. They're not quite sure what this is, and they want their kid to be able to have all the things that they want their kids to have. So I mean, I always have a little compromise and understanding, compassion for parents in the situation of guiding their kids. What I always encourage them to do is always be heavily involved, but also this is like Coach said earlier. You know, this has got to be player driven. You know, you gotta allow this to be your kid's choice. And we teach them these life lessons early in their life about how to handle conflict, about how to deal with, to speak up for themselves, you know, what character is, all those type things, getting through adversity. I just think the parents is when you can learn to take a step back and continue to be that support system, that guide and that protection. It's not a problem to question a coach. Any coach in their right mind that can coach and know, and that's been a parent, we're going to have a conversation. You know, it's always about appropriate times to do anything, and we can teach and talk about that in the culture. But you know, you're supposed to be able to question and ask questions. Those things of people that's dealing with your children. So I'm not a full off approach, but I am a guy that when I in my programs coming up in high school that I didn't allow parents in my practices. You know, I kept them out. I kept because we all have to allow those kids to be able to hear from someone else, to be able to take direction from someone else, and not to always look back for their parents for direction in those aspects. And so just kind of coaching and teaching them in that lane. But you're never going to have a parent that's not going to be a parent. I mean, that's just going to be what it is. So, you know, relationships are important in that aspect, and how you handle it is important in that aspect. But I encourage our parents to be involved. I think you should be involved. You know, that's your kid, but we have to be able to have some bridges and guidelines and some boundaries that has to be set for those kids and for growth. And if that's okay, then I think we're fine. You know, and so that's why I mean I continue to support parents and their ability to be heavily involved. But get educated on this because this is changing, and this is Coach said this a few minutes ago. This has become a business. This is not what it used to be. This is a business. So we have to look at it from that standpoint. And that's where the parents can be very helpful to their children.
Amen. Get educated. Good. Coach Sheen, Help
Yeah,
this
man.
help this former psycho parent out. How do I
Yeah,
find
I think with parents, I was a parent. One thing that I did as a parent, I trusted people around me that had a resume, that kind of either been through or trying to go through what I'm trying to go through, so I could, kind of, see their past experience and kind of now, turn it to mine. I think another thing parents have to do when they're going to make big decisions when it comes to their daughter, when it comes with switching AAU teams, or even I think the biggest decision is transferring high schools. Late in the game, I get that a lot. And one thing I do not like when a parent says, "I'm gonna let it be her decision," right? And I always say, if a kid have a Ferrari and has a house note, if they got to get rid of one, they're gonna pay the Ferrari note. They're gonna the heck with that house note. Sometimes I think as a family, you're going to have to make the decision for your child because as a parent, you're protecting them. You know what's best because, I had one kid, we had a really good point guard that we liked that was going to come in, and she didn't come because, her boyfriend, was at home, right? And the college coach really liked this kid. They said, if I can see this kid at y'all level, that's a different story as far as her recruitment. But, she didn't make that decision and she stayed because she wanted to stay next to her boyfriend that probably you don't know if they're going to be together, right? So I think if you could, trust people and really, like I said, make them decisions for your parents, for your kids. One decision I didn't do was choose a school for Sierra for college. That was going to be her because I didn't want her to get to school and be like, you told me to go here, And, I'm from New Jersey and, she's at Sacred Heart University. I didn't want her to go up north. I wanted her to stay more down south. I really like JMU. JMU came kind of late, but knowing one of the coaches on the coaching staff, he said, "Hey, they're going to offer her because somebody didn't take that offer." I said, "Okay, cool." But that conversation with JMU was like, "Hey, look, you're going to come in, you're going to work hard. We really like you." Versus Sacred Heart saying like, "Hey, they had a transparent plan. They told her that, hey, look, we're bringing in a grad student. You're going to play. Your sophomore year, you're going to have the opportunity to play." But when she got to training camp, she said, "Dad, I'm better than this year." I said, "Look, compete for the job." And then now you go 10 games into the season, and now 4 years later, she's a 4-year starter. So I think, if you start and another thing parents do, which is they listen to the last person they talk to.
Oh,
And
yes.
this can be some detrimental advice that could ruin their kid's career. Really, I done seen it so much. And I try not to be so hyperbolic, but now I not to say I don't care, but when I see a parent making a bad decision for a kid now, I kind of be like, man, I probably ponder over it for like 4 hours and I'd be done. Back in the day, I'd be like, man, 2, 3 days. Hey, look, man, you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't. But you got to let parents be parents. You got to let them go through it and you got to like just give them it. Because the thing is, I'm just going to give them advice that I did myself. I'm not taking nobody else's advice. I'm just saying, hey, man, this is what I did. You can probably do the same, and not just try to. And another thing with parents is they gotta be in reality, right? You got some parents that think their kid is better than what they are. I know last year, 2 years ago, I was trying to recruit this kid to come TPLS reclassify, and her dad called me probably at the beginning of the season. He said, "Look, man, I'm looking to make that move." I said, "Okay, cool. We're looking to put together 2 teams. I think she'll be a candidate." To be on the regional team. And he was like, "Hold up, regional? I don't want her to be on the 18." He said the 18. I said, "Well, no, we're gonna have a national and a regional team." He said, "No, man, I want her to be." I said, and I straight up told him, I said, "Look, your daughter's not better than a sophomore that we have, right? And for her to get out there and play, she needs to get film on this regional team because you don't want to reclass, and she's going to be a senior, so this would be the best spot for her." And that conversation turned to, "Yeah, I want to come to they back at public school, because I can't just tell them what they want to hear because if I just get them in the door and have them pay a tuition and they be like, hey, man, my daughter's not starting or my daughter's not getting playing time, that's going to be a disgruntled parent from the gate. And we don't really want that at all as far as what we're doing because we're trying to help everybody. But I think a lot of key factors plays in as far as, going to that maturation process.
Amen.
Yeah, and I'm gonna add to that. Sometimes, coach, I'm sitting there listening to you say that, and I'm thinking, we see so many times of people making the wrong choice, and it just, you sit there, you think like, you have to allow them. That's their child, that's their family, and you learn over time in your life that everybody else have their own path, but you have
Hmm.
information and you're trying to help people, and sometimes it's just not. You have to accept that it's not for everybody, and what you see in them is not the same that everybody else is seeing. They got to go through their own path and process. But sometimes I remember early in those days, it would bother you. It would bother
Hmm.
you because you kind of want to think you can save everybody, but it's not. That's not their journey. It wasn't your place to make change in their life at that time of their life. So that's a coaching thing that we do go through. That's why I wanted to go back through
Man,
that.
look, my wife tell me every time, Sheen, you can't save everybody. So now when something like that happened, I used to talk to her about it, get it off my chest. She'll listen to me. Be like,
Yeah,
you can't save everybody.
yeah.
Can't save everybody.
I've been there, bro. I've been there.
Well, I watch a lot of basketball podcasts, and basically all of the pros, they always talk about this one. On the guy side, they talk about this one gentleman who wasn't necessarily athletic, but he gave them the business every time they stepped on the court with him because he knew every angle and he was the smartest guy they ever played. And they talk about John Stockton all the time, about how John Stockton gave people the business. And I talked with my kid and I said, hey, listen, while we're working on the explosiveness, I want you to listen to what they're saying about John, and I want us to try to make you the smartest player on the court. And we're going to try to grow your mind so that you may not have that explosiveness, but I want you to become the smartest player on the court. And I gave her some thoughts on that. But Coach Tinsley, we'll start with you. If you have an athlete that, especially a point guard, that you wanted them to become just wiser at the game, smarter at the game, knowing the angles, and we can't get them quite yet in Coach Sheen's program here in Richmond, so we can't get them in that program. But is there any, whether it's a book, whether it's a video system, whether it's a camp or a educational camp that's available, what thoughts would you give to a young athlete where you want to help develop the mental side of the game, because they may not have that explosiveness, but they need to learn as much as they can. How would you mentor that young athlete?
Well, I mean, I first would start out and say, listen, to make it and to be successful at the Division I level, you have to have some of that. You got to learn to be a student of the game. We put so much on you to know, and some of the progressive players that come from high school that struggle a little bit is because they haven't been taught these things at that level, and so they're behind when they get to us in learning concept. They're confused. It takes away when you're confused. It takes away from your athleticism. It takes away from your quickness.
Mm.
Takes away from your ability to be impactful in the game, and so you have to play catch up with those kids at that time. And so I mean, I think every team has to have you know put it like this, we would like to every team to have a component where they see the mind and think the game, but that also comes from what you're taught. That comes from the culture and environment that you're in. How are you being taught the game every day? It's not just practice on the court. It's watching film. It's talking about different angles and things at that time. It's when you're training and when you're working on and understanding why we make these moves and all those things. It's getting in the gym on your own. It's watching games with young ladies. I always found it to be difficult because they don't watch basketball like men do.
Come on, man. Yep.
you know so they don't watch the game like men do, so we lose that component of the learning of the game for them. And so I think we all want people like John Stockton. There's a place for people like John Stockton on every team, just someone that understands the game, that can think things through, but the goal is to get all of them that way. And that's the goal, is to get all of your team that way. I think because to be at this level where we are, if you don't have that component, it's going to be very difficult. It'll be very
Amen.
difficult.
Amen. So that's good mentorship, good coaching. Coach Sheen, any thoughts? I want my baby to become the female John Stockton on the court. We can't get in your academy quite yet. So then, what are your thoughts? How in Richmond, what advice you want to give us to make my baby the John Stockton of girls basketball?
Yeah, I think Coach hit it on the head, man. Just watch basketball. That's the main thing. Back in the day, we used to go play out in the playground, and then we watch basketball. So you'll be amazed how many girls that don't watch basketball. I think right now some good momentum with the WNBA.
Yeah.
And I always tell these girls to start with college. I remember when Sierra first started at the academy, she didn't watch basketball, right? She was just like, Dad, I do basketball all day. I don't watch basketball. She doing that. So when as she got older, I started watching more college basketball. Even I had to kind of listen to my own self, right? I'm like, man, I only look at men's basketball. I need to start watching women's. So then I started watching women's basketball because some of the girls that we were playing on the high school circuit were at these schools. And then one time Sierra, kind of sat down. She was like, oh man, I played against her. And that really took her mindset to another level to see multiple girls that she played against that she complained that she couldn't, stay in front of or she couldn't guard, and they playing at this level. It's like a light bulb went off with her. She was like, wow, that kind of gave her a mindset like, man, these girls are on TV. I just played them 2 years ago. So
Mhm.
now it turns into her watching more basketball. And I think when you watch more basketball, one thing, and look, one thing I could say about my daughter, and I could brag, she has an elite basketball IQ, smart as a whip. She wants to be a coach. So, coach, if you ever get a job, I'm gonna plug her in with you. So, but I
You know
think
what?
that's the main thing. If you can have a smart basketball player, that could take because on the makeup of a team, a coach is already going to have their point guard, their scorer. You need if you got an elite role player, that makes the coach job absolutely happy, and they'll love that player from day one until the day they leave.
Hmm.
Mm,
Very true. Just
okay.
so you know, my head coach is a Richmond guy, so that's home.
And,
Hey,
and look, you know what? And Coach Joe was on the staff at Sacred Heart right when Sierra was getting there.
Oh
So
yeah.
Coach Joe, yeah, that's my guy, man.
Yeah,
okay.
I've
Yep.
known Joe for 20 years, man. Go way back. He a Richmond guy too. He was in
Yep.
Richmond.
Yep. He sure was. Yep.
All
Yeah.
right. Now, Coach Sheen, I'm curious. Why is there not? Why do you like? How come EYBL is not as prominent in? This is just a Richmond question. How come EYBL is not as prominent on the girls' side in Richmond? And, because it seemed like if someone wants to get on EYBL, they got to go all the way up north, or they got to go to the seven cities. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I don't know. I think look, you got Boo Williams, right? It kind of starts and stops there. That legacy as far as what he built. You got Northern Virginia that has a higher population density there. You think about it, a lot of our kids that's really elite in Richmond, they go play the EYBLs and everything else. So, I even kind of look at it for even our brand for Havoc. I can go try to compete to get some of these high level girls, but I can't provide what EYBL can do. Sponsorships, free flights. I need kids that's going to have to, pay their own way. So I kind of look at it like if I'm a mid-major college, I can't go after the ESPN kid if I'm a recruiter in college, right? Because I could be wasting my. I could give that kid an offer, and the kid will be like, "Oh, thank you, I appreciate it," but they're going to probably go to a Power Four school. So I try to look at that as far as our program. I think what we try to do, you almost kind of only can build what you can start, right? So we were successful bringing the FBC program to the Richmond, Virginia area. We got on the Rise circuit. So probably 2 years ago, we won the UA Rise. So even in another year, it may be an opportunity to go to another circuit, like a Power 24 or something else that if they are interested in having us. So it's all about kind of starting. And I think a lot of them teams got a lot of momentum and a lot of money behind them. And I don't think just putting the EYBL team in Richmond is going to solve it because even just think about this. They just got an EYBL team in Georgia. I think that's the first one in Georgia, right? And it's run and it started by I forgot the lady from it. She used to be with FBC, a prominent person that's in this basketball field. She's on the McDonald's All-American committee, and she can go ahead and recruit high-level girls and compete with the FBCs and the essences of the world. But a lot of thing that comes with that, there's a lot of money that's being, put behind that, behind that brand as well.
Amen. For the basketball ignorant, can you break down FBC for us?
Oh, FBC is called Finest Basketball Club. It started with Coach Mo in Atlanta, Georgia. He's kind of morphed that thing into kind of like a a recruiting ground for young athletes, from the high majors to the low majors. At first, we were Virginia Havoc. We started the VA Havoc program for girls. It was some kind of differences as far as how the program was going. So we, got with Coach Mo and became FBC Havoc. So his is based out of Atlanta. He has teams in Nashville, over the West Coast. So it's kind of like it's kind of like independently owned and operated, which each brand, and we all kind of try to stay on brand as far as what we're doing on the AAU side. And he has the UA side. He plays on the UA circuit. So you got the Adidas, you got the EYBL, and you got the UA circuit. So FBC is on that UA circuit, and we're kind of on the rise, a little bit under level as far as what the UA is. And it's a good brand, and Coach Mo has been done nothing but support us since we've been with the brand.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well,
so I have a question real quick, Tony, because this past weekend, and since you kind of were talking about the EYBL and the shoe circuits and whatnot, this past weekend I was talking with somebody. I've known her and her husband for years, and her husband coaches at a mid-major Division I school in Maryland, and she was talking to me about a couple of EYBL teams, for Italy to come up, try to come up that way and play on the EYBL circuit. And she basically said that her husband was telling her that he would rather have a bench player from an EYBL team than a starter from some other circuits, on teams from the other circuits. So I'm just curious. I've been around the game for a long time. I know that everybody would have a different opinion, but I thought that if this topic came up today, I was going to ask this question, and so it came up. So I need to ask both Rasheen and Mike. What do you guys think? Mike, in your recruiting now, Division I. So what's your take on that?
Well, I mean, remember, I just come off of a spring on the EYBL circuit.
Mm-hmm.
I was coaching with Team Durant this spring, before I accepted this job here in Utah. And it was the first time I coached girls especially in AAU, since I coached with Boo way back in the day. So that was a while ago. And it's different. I will say this. I mean, Washington, D.C. area and EYBL circuit is different because you have so many of them in the same place. I'm more intrigued when Coach talks about a program they have in Richmond, when you don't have it oversaturated with so many kids in the same area, and you can kind of be in a place in a culture that's hungry, that's growing, that has kids that's not coming from as far. I think the EYBL in our area has been tougher than it was when it started. Having 3 programs and take over Durant and Fairfax Stars right there. Then you look at Adidas right there with I forgot
Elevate Bruno.
Elevate. Look what Bruno has done there in Virginia, in Northern Virginia, with kids that are not EYBL circuit. There's talent there. Always the advantage I thought in the Richmond area and the middle of the Virginia area is you got a bunch of private schools down there that have kids that are not just from the cities. They have kids from other countries. They have kids from other states. And so you have a larger pool to be a little bit more impactful and effective. We're going to go see you wherever you are. If you can play, it's our job to go find you.
That's right.
You understand? I mean, we don't care if it's EYBL, YCE, YMCA. If you can play,
you can play.
We gonna find you. That's the job, our job at this level. That's what we get paid for. That's what we expect from our recruiting coordinator, that they work and they go find those hidden gems. And we build relationships with coaches that are not in those major market areas. I may have a better chance of getting someone off a coach's program in Virginia than I will in DC, because I got to deal with every one of those schools in the DC area that's going to be recruiting her also. Especially with someone's being from our way up, we're being on this side of the country. So I mean, I think it's not all about just being EYBL right now. The level is what it used to be about by being EYBL, because the level was different. But now you can go on Adidas and you can go on Under Armour and you can find teams of the same quality level. So, I really just believe it is subjective to who's recruiting. The kid's fine, the kid can play, we're gonna find it.
Okay. Yeah, and I also really, when you coach, man, you play 8, you trust 7. So if that coach say that, hey, I'd rather have a bench player and you're that ninth person, that means you're not playing a lot.
Yes.
And now, we're at the point where it's a lot more options than it was previous years ago. So I think a lot of people and a lot of and look, I can't do it. I don't have a UIBL, but they say, hey, this is the highest level. But if you're not playing, you're not helping or benefiting yourself. And I always tell parents this before I even recruit them for even a AAU. I could look at a kid that's on a program and I could say to myself, based upon who's in that program, they won't be playing by the time they're 17.
Yeah.
So I put that in front of the parent. I'll be like, hey, man, just pay attention to the roster. And in 2 years, man, I'd love to have you. Like, oh, you ain't going to recruit me now? No, I don't want to have to go through that spiel right now. I'm going to let you go and see. And then maybe you can come back and you can kind of see what's going on, because at the end of the day, these kids got to get seen. I remember I was recruited. We needed a point guard, kind of 10th hour at TPLS. It was like 3 years ago. It was a kid named Kendall Scott. She was at the end of, I think she played for Fairfax Stars. She didn't play a lot. And the Division II coach told me about her. I need a point guard for high school. I felt like a college coach, right? I'm scrambling, I need a point guard. He said, look, this kid ain't play a lot, but I saw her play and she can play. Called her up within 2 days, got her to leave her high school. She came to play with us, for high school. And now she got an offer to Gardner Webb, and now she's playing at Delaware. But a kid like that, she played for us in TPLS. She played for us in AAU. And let me tell you one thing: she actually went back to Fairfax Stars because she had a good high school year. She went back to Fairfax Stars, had coaches go see her the first live period. She didn't play, and I told her, I said, "Look, I told you, you need to be playing here. You'll be starting. These coaches are going to go see you play." That's what's going to happen. And they left after that first live period. They made the good decision. And I told her dad, I said, look, you listened to me and left high school, but you not listen to me with AAU because they're so attracted to the EYBL. And people don't understand, like, once that live period gone, now you got other kids other parents like, man, who is this coming on our team, right? Right at the live period. And it's funny, it's called the high school, the AAU transfer portal. You start to get new kids. So
Yeah.
I always say, like, look at your kid individually. Me personally, I don't think that's good advice. And I think Coach hit it on the head. Coaches have to do their job. And it's all about putting a resume together for a kid to do their job, so they can get better information versus just saying at the 10th hour, I'm just going to go to the EYBL team when you got all these other options. Because sometimes, look, I'll text a coach. I don't expect for every coach to hit me back when I text them, but it's so many times when I talk to coaches and they say, "Hey, I need a guard, I need a wing," and I literally just go to my text thread and I just comment on, "Hey, I sent this to you," and sometimes I sent it to them a year ago, right? And it's all about, hey, this is the information I sent a year ago. Now you can look at the information that you can get now, and then it can just make your job a lot easier. Because one thing that I've been blessed as far as not just helping kids that I've been with my program. And look, I've tried to send so many girls to Sacred Heart, right? But that coach has a different philosophy as far as recruiting. But when I could look at some of the text threads from certain coaches, and I could say that, man, this kid playing at George Washington, this kid I tried to see you play at Texas State. So a lot of people make mistakes in this game, and it comes from both sides.
Okay.
That's very true.
Coach Tinsley, I got a question for you. My baby, because I've talked to her about this, she's doing her best to be an all A student. She's getting a couple B's. But the question is, are they looking at superior grade structure, or are they looking at, can you play and do you meet the academic requirements? Like how are they looking at it from an academic perspective?
Well, I think if you preach excellence, it doesn't differentiate. It doesn't go from basketball to academic. It's the same. You have kids that learn differently. You have kids that may struggle a little bit to get concepts than others. But the goal for every student is to be the best student they possibly can be. And that's what we're going to encourage. Sometimes you'll be in a position to take kids that are more risk, that don't have the background and understanding how to be a good student. So we try to put them in a culture around other good students to where it seems to be cool to be a good student, where they can be a little bit more hungry to do that. But no, excellence is always the standard. We're talking about life. And with education, it opens up so many doors, and it's a short span for professional sports, and even more so for women. We talk about when we think about men playing throughout their career, men don't have a baby in the middle of their career.
Right.
Men don't have those things in life that's going to happen that's going to pause them. So a woman's career in basketball can be a whole lot shorter than any male counterpart. And so you want to make sure that they are educated. That's very important to every coach that I've ever known and been around, including and our staff as well.
Okay. Now I ask a Richmond-based question before I go back to Coach Sheen. I'm gonna hit you with a Utah question. All right. When I was a defense contractor, I had the pleasure of visiting Utah, and on one hand, let me just say something positive. It was the cleanest city that I have ever been to in my entire born years. Like literally I could walk down. I ain't have to worry about I ain't had to worry about getting mugged. I ain't had to worry about nothing. I mean, cleanest. You don't even find a scrap of dirt on it. Literally, when they talk about Off to See the Wizard and Wizard of Oz, that's how it felt up in Salt Lake City. But now I went to Utah prior to being saved, Coach Tinsley. Okay. So I was a young man.
Okay.
All right. And the good part about visiting Utah is there was no temptation there at Utah for me at all, at least for what I was looking for at that time. You understand what I'm saying? And I'll be blunt. I'm not trying to be gross or nothing, but there was no melanin there in Utah. So I just asked you, Coach Tinsley, can you share with us the challenges of recruiting for the great state of Utah?
Well, listen, there's still not much melanin. and you're right. I thought this is my first time being in Utah, coming out here this summer. I thought the same thing. Like, man, this place is just clean. Like, I'm coming from DC. I'm like, this place is clean. It's very nice. Very good place to live. But one of the things that we look at this point in time with trying to convince people to come out to where we are in Utah is just about what we're building, what is special and winning, having to be is a good thing about when you take over a program that didn't have a lot of previous success. Our school went 20 years without even having a women's varsity team. They didn't get back to having a varsity team in women's basketball until 2003. So, we're part of this process of changing culture, building things, making it more of a special place. This is a great part about where we are here. It's safe. We always preach on the safety and what we offer as an agricultural school here at Utah State, but also what we offer is being able to what we can competitively offer. Moving into the Pac-12, playing at the highest level that we can play. With the time where we're in NIL, well, that's very important. Being able to have the access and the access and the resources to be able to help people financially as they decide with their college decision. And so, it's many good reasons to bring people out here to Utah now. And when you got new faces in a new place where everybody's excited about growing at a place they've never been. Our school took a big step by making this jump to go to the Pac-12. That just solidified where they wanted to be athletically and how important it is. And when you get that from leadership and from the top, it just motivates you to go down, and so, it's different for me to come to Washington and Richmond to get a kid to come to Utah, but that's why we build relationships with everybody in the country, because our education in our place is the same as everywhere else, but having relationships with coaches in different areas allow us to break through some of those distant barriers, and in a time that we need it.
Amen, amen. Well, let me help you, Coach. There's no distraction. There's not as many distractions in Utah. You can focus on the game. It's like being out in the Himalayas. You can kind of focus and lock in. Amen.
I would tell any recruit that goes to Utah, if you see a gas station, get your gas at that station. Don't wait till the next one, because the next one ain't coming. It's not coming. I'm telling you. Listen, I'm one of those guys. My wife kept telling me, listen, you're going to need some gas here soon. We had a half a tank. I'm like, I got a little while. Listen, I was not even on fumes, man. I was driving on a prayer.
Wow.
By the time I finally found another gas station, back in the day, you used to cut the radio down and cut the air off and cut everything. I wouldn't even roll down the windows. it was bad.
Yeah.
But Utah is a beautiful place, though. Very nice place.
And the people are really friendly, man. I tell you, I really was in the green coming out here, had no clue what it was. And I had some concern being a black male coming out to Utah. How was it going to be? But these people have been really nice. It's been alarmingly nice. I'm actually, we got a big event going on this week because, there's a tragedy that happened out here at the university that's probably about 2 hours from us. And it's just in our country that we're so divided in so many things right now. It brings racial tension. And so, I worry about those things being in a state like I'm in and being a black male, but I don't see it in our community so far. So I'm hoping I still don't see it, but I don't see it. Our campus is really, our community is a college town. So you really kind of get more of you seeing everybody that's kind of in sync with each other. It's very diverse from the aspect of more than I thought. So, it's been some things that I worried about being in Utah that really, really hadn't been a problem. And I'm glad of.
Coach Sheen, you have helped students you have helped students get placed. And I'm one of those parents who I'm always making clips for my kid, highlight reels for your kid. We'll kick it to Coach Tinsley as well. But what do you, from your experience, what should parents when they're helping their kids make these highlight clips? What should they do? What should they not do? What gets on the recruiter's nerves? What is something that is helpful? Like someone taught me, don't put in free throws.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm my number one. Don't put no free throws in.
Yeah. Just a waste of time. So, any other tips or tricks regarding having a good highlight reel?
I think, coaches are so busy, man. You can't have the 8-minute highlight reel. How much you'd be like, oh man, I got to put that in, got to put this in. I think your highlight should tell a story as far as what type of basketball player you are. I think you should do that between 2.5 to 3 minutes. That's it. That's tops. I think every kid should have a Twitter account. If it's going to be ran by, obviously both kids, I think parents should monitor it. Don't be it, right? Because now you start to see some kids on Twitter. It's a beautiful day out here. I'm taking a stroll in the park. No 14-year-old, 15-year-old kid talks like that, right? So sometimes the parents start to morph into the kid on Twitter versus, hey, your job is up there to follow coaches. Probably, hey, coach, look at this video, post, retweet. A lot of kids do a lot of stuff on Instagram, which is cool. And I see a lot of kids follow me on Instagram, but I don't do a lot of sports stuff on Instagram because I have like different platforms. I got the TPLS platform. I got the FBC. My Instagram is probably going to see my kids on there, their highlights or whatever. I don't mind. They follow me, and I actually leave my Instagram open because I coach and I want parents to know who I am, right? And I think, and another thing is just keeping your stuff clean, right? So. I'm from like Coach said, I'm from the hood in Newark, New Jersey, right? I got a friend group chat on Instagram that we send funny reels about that's hilarious, but I won't post that on my story, right? So kids got to kind of understand like, hey, you got to be professional and there's a time and place for everything. I think, the kids kind of lose sight of that to a certain extent. And I think it starts from the adults, and I do it for myself, even though I know it's my Facebook page, this is my page, but I'm not going to put a fight compilation on my Facebook page or my Instagram page. It's just not professional. So I think doing stuff and kind of rinse and repeat, that'll be the best way that you can do stuff as far as to get recruited. And just don't get discouraged if a coach don't reach back out to you. Now with NCAA rules, coaches can't reach out to you not unless you're 2027 right now. But if you can inbox a coach and the coach could be on that bus leaving the game, they can like, let me go on my DM. All right, let me see what this kid sending me this message, knowing they can't respond back. They be like, oh, okay. And once they start to know a kid, then that can grow. I don't know. You got to ask coach this, but I know one coach told me she hates when people tag her on Twitter about every little thing they do, right? When they putting the highlight up, they'll tag about 50 coaches, and it makes the coach don't even look at it, but oh, another kid tagging me, right? So I don't know. I gotta let coach ask that about the tagging process on Twitter.
Well, it can get oversaturated is the problem that comes is you get things from so many different kids. But you hit it on the nail though, Coach. Like you should have a Twitter, you should have an Instagram. We do
Mm.
go look at those things. We do go try to find out, get a snippet of who you are. You know, we're trying to see a little bit of who you are as a player, and that helps. That intrigue us for the most part going forward. So, but also knowing those tools need to be heavily monitored because it can also lose you opportunities. You know, we're in the business of, trying to build winning programs here, but we have families, we work every day, we're not trying to lose jobs. So we're really big on characters of kids and who we bring into our program. And so a lot of those things we look at it, kind of see a little bit of character of each kid and what they look at and what they post and what they're involved in. So, parents that also pay attention to that because we do pay attention to those things. But yeah, I'm like Coach. They should have those access be under control. But if you oversaturate, I mean, we're very busy. Like, so if if you send me something, with this transition coming from Durant this spring, all of my kids that was playing on my team wanted to text me all of July, letting me know how they were doing or what was going on in the games. At this point in time now, I'm not able to have any conversation back with them about it, and so, I can receive those things from them, and that's fine. But eventually, it's not going to be any back and forth. So you just you send things, make sure coaches know who you are. Once we follow each other, we'll see it. We'll see things.
Okay. All right. Now,
So is the rule that sorry Tony, is the rule that coaches can't make initial contact or you can't even respond, Mike?
Well, I was coaching a group that wasn't like Coach said, they wasn't 2027s. I was coaching 15 years. So I think that's what, 28, 29.
Yeah,
So
28.
yeah, I won't have any contact with those kids. I can't have any contact with those kids outside that time frame. Yeah,
Yeah.
because they're not
You can send a coach something, but they can't text,
right.
They can't call you. It has to be set up through another coach.
Yeah, yeah. Now I can receive and they can reach out and all those type things, but I wouldn't be able to call back.
all right. Well, y'all gonna say Coach Fowler's hanging out with an idiot because I'm gonna ask a real dumb question. I apologize, Coach Fowler. I'm not trying to damage your reputation, Coach Fowler.
It's all good.
So I guess where I'm confused is I hear about all these kids where they brag about they got a letter from a college and they're like in the 8th and 9th grade and 10th grade, but then like you're saying that there's these rules where you can't talk to the kids. So are these like how do these kids are getting letters when the communication is limited? I'm sorry, excuse my ignorance.
Mhm.
If y'all any ideas or thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I mean that's always been standard in the rule. They can receive content and literature from us from the university at those early ages. Typically, it will be kind of generic. It used to be where we would actually cite the rule in there. We would just say, "Hey, saw you played this summer. Great job. Blah blah blah. There's the rule, NCAA rule. We can't, say such and such thing." So, you really it's just about at that time just kind of getting on the kids' radar, sending things out, trying to be the first. It's just strategic movement in that aspect. But the kid's not going to really start getting recruited till they're in their more of their high school years.
A percentage that I have in my head that I quote all the time is only 1.5% of all kids are going to make it D1. So every time my child steps into the gym, I always, ask myself the question, are we moving toward that 1.5% of the kids in the gym, or are we, what do we need to change to become that 1.5%? But now with the colleges using JUCO and using the transfer portal and using these, recruiting from the transfer portal and not going through the high schools as often. Is that 1.5%? Is that a dated number now? Or would you still say that's a pretty solid percentage? Or is that equation off now? We'll start with Coach Sheen. What are your thoughts?
No, I think that's probably, it always kind of bounced between 1.2 to 1.5. I mean, like you said, I think that's a real number. And I always look at it from an AAU perspective. Even for us, I mean, I was 17U team last year. We had 2 kids that had consistent offers, a lot of kids that didn't have offers, and this what happens when some kids come to your program. They expect you to make a miracle or something when these kids have not been recruited, even though they're good basketball players. They just not have been recruited. And And I always say to parents, don't be AAU reliant, right? Just relying on AAU because, these parents get crazy around live period. You talk about psycho parents, man. You got some kids that's been playing 13 minutes all year and they get the live period and play 12 and the parent like, hey, man, what extra minute at? So they gotta, they just gotta, it's crazy, man, that, you go through this. So, oh, and another thing now, I'm a new information person. Always pay attention to new information. I always say don't be just don't be like Blockbuster, right? When Netflix came around, they're like, hey man, we want to try to do something different. And Blockbuster like, nah, we got this videotape thing on lock, right? The Netflix, they say, all right, we're gonna do DVDs, we're gonna mail it to your house. Now Netflix is streaming. Now Netflix got wrestling, they got boxing, they kind of changed with the times. So I think parents gotta absorb new information and they gotta also change with the time because it's doing nothing but be beneficial to your kid. And just like Coach said, it allows you to ask more pertinent questions because now you can kind of see if your AAU organization is kind of, are they going with different times? Are they kind of adjusting to new things? So there's a lot of key factors, but I think just being consistent on that will kind of, help you as much as possible.
Okay. What are your thoughts about that old percentage that I throw around? And is that dated now, Coach Tinsley, or what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think the percentage is very similar in this way, but it's everything's changed. Like I think when we talk about wanting to be a Division I athlete, we've got to shift our mindset. We want to go play basketball and get college paid for, because so many kids put so much emphasis on getting to a Division I level to play and have poor experiences because they go to programs that don't win. They play on the coaches. A lot of different circumstances can happen. Nowadays, where we have the portal, and not just the portal for kids transferring from college to college, but there's a new market. There is professional players in Europe are getting their years back to come to the US to play and get NIL. So now, and they just approved the first one on the men's side, a G League player that's played 2 years semi-pro is now going back to college as a junior. So we're growing on the end of trying to get more experienced players to be able to win more impactful now. And so, it changes the numbers when you talk about a kid getting to Division I level. But I know a lot of programs that are not, I know a lot of Division II programs that are better than Division I programs. And so, at the end of the day, we're talking about putting our kids in the positions where they're going to be able to get to college, get their education paid for, and have the experience that you want to have. That was one of my biggest battle in my years as a high school coach. I stopped coaching high school 3-4 years ago in South Carolina because of this, right after COVID, because of the impact of having seniors that are struggling to be recruited when any other year these guys would have easily gotten recruited to Division I spots. But now because I can go get a 22-year-old in the portal, that I don't have to teach them about being on time for things. I don't have to get on about certain things. This person's already been there. They have the experience. They know how to get prepared for games. They know how to take care of their body. They understand the level. They played in games. And so, it's shifting. We all have to shift because college basketball is shifting. And so, yes, I believe the numbers stay similar, but I just think there's a lot of different, more variable components. And we've got to broaden our mindset on what we feel is good level competition for our kids in college, and not just put it based on just this Division I opportunity. And so that's kind of got to, I think, is a little bit got to be some of the shift.
Amen. Amen. Coach Fowler, we've gone. This has been well, first of all, I just want to thank you, gentlemen. You have put on a masterclass, and truly, I'm going to make my children watch this podcast. They don't want to see dad's podcast all the time, but I'm going to sit there and like, no, you're going to listen to this one. And then my wife is going to truly enjoy this podcast as well. And I think any parent who watches this is going to truly be blessed by your expertise. And we thank you both. You have been it's truly been a pleasure having you on our podcast. You brought a lot. And we really appreciate your wealth of knowledge. Coach Fowler, I'll let you close us out. What are your thoughts?
Well, no, but for you two guys, typically I'm not this quiet, but I will say this is that I was trying to take it all in myself. because the landscape has changed. Sometimes I'm worried I'm the delusional parent. You know what I'm saying? So, so that I was trying to gather the knowledge and the information you guys were putting out today as well. And I will truly say that you two were the first two people I thought of when we started talking about is your child really Division I? I was like, I gotta be able to try to get them on, and I really do appreciate you guys coming. I didn't say anything before all of this conversation and everything, but Mike is one of my mentors. I met him 21 years ago, and
It's been 21 years.
It's been 21 years, Mike. I just aged both of us. But it's been 21 years, man. It was 2004. And I was young and just kind of getting started. And I learned so much from Mike that 1 year. I look back and it's like, I've not in any other time of my basketball journey have I learned more than I learned under Mike. That year. Some was tough love. He had to have some tough conversations with me and whatnot, but I appreciate it. Come a long way from there. But every time we get a chance to meet up and chat, man, it's always good.
Yes.
I watch Mike everywhere he goes. Success follows him, man, and he's if you look at his coaching tree and just look at people, and there's another guy, Cornelius, that I chat with a lot and hang out with, came from Mike's coaching tree, and he's been successful. Just won a state championship last year at St. Margaret's in Tappahannock. So, Mike, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you taking the time to come on. Big time Mike now, Division One coach. So I appreciate that. And then Rasheen, I met him about a year or so ago. He pulled Italy to the side. Italy was having a rough day. I mean, it was rough. And he pulled her to the side, had a conversation. And then from there, me and Rasheen were able to chat it up a little bit, and getting to know him. And like I said, it was funny. And I put this on blast, Rasheen, because she just don't know yet, man. But me and Rasheen were talking last week, and I was a little bit embarrassed that she said this right in front of Rasheen. She said, we need to get KP on that podcast. Panel, and I was, and he was right behind Rasheen. He was back. He was sitting down in the seat where me and Rasheen were next to where me and Rasheen were talking. And I looked at her and I said, the first person that I thought of was Rasheen is who I wanted to bring on here. And then I'll be honest with you, Rasheen, you were, man. And so I appreciate you coming on and doing this as well. It's always good to have that, but she don't know. She don't understand. I mean, she just hears.
Hey, look, man. I'll probably say the same thing, man. You gotta get KP because, that
trying to get that McDonald's. She's trying to get on USA.
Yes, look. So, I met KP at She Got Game, and that was my first time actually to kind of work with him, man. He was kind of telling me some stuff, so I was happy to be there. I'd probably said the same thing, man. You gotta get KP up there too,
Well, listen, he definitely demands the room when he speaks. So that's what she's gathered from him is he demands that room when he speaks. So, but no, appreciate you guys, man. Y'all have been clutch, and we appreciate that. Like I said, I've taken a lot of it in and learned a lot from what you guys had to say today.
Oh, absolutely.
And Coach Sheen, is also a big benefit. And when you talk about the numbers that y'all are putting up and the things that y'all are doing in your program, it's kind of good to know that there's something in the Richmond area. And we go to Rocket all the time, and we never heard all the details about your program. So I'm hoping some parents will see the benefits of your program, because I think more people need to know about what y'all are doing.
Absolutely.
More people need to know, because it sounds like a successful route where you don't have to drive all the way 70 miles to the 7 cities, and you don't have to drive 70 miles to Fairfax, or, nothing negative, but you don't have to drive 70 miles to Team Durant either. I mean, because I love those programs, but that 70 miles, it starts wearing on you after a while. So
70 miles is 70 miles. And one thing about our AAU organization, we are separate from Rocket. So even though TPLS is in the building, we don't do AAU out that building.
Okay.
So we practice at Highland Springs High School, we practice at Meadowbrook. So we have other high schools that we practice at, because obviously Rocket has its own AAU program. there. But yeah, that's the difference as far as the AAU and the TPLS.
Amen. That's awesome. That's awesome. And y'all got tryouts for the 5th and 6th graders coming in a couple of weeks too, as well, right?
No. That's VA Havoc. That's
Oh,
VA Havoc. Yes, that's
good to
VA
know.
Havoc. So
That's
yeah, we do. I think with the lack thereof coaching, we don't do the younger kids. So if you got a kid that's in 7th or 8th grade, well, I say 7th grade, and most people are like, oh, I want a 7th grade team. My thing is, last year our 8th grade team, half our team were 7th grade, and they were probably the better kids on the team. So I say that's that process where you start to be like, hey, look, now you're looking at as far as how you're trying to develop in 2 or 3 years versus just being the best 7th grader out there. If you're a good 7th grade, you can play 8th grade, you
okay.
know.
Yeah.
And if you develop, then you can go from 8th grade to probably 15U, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about just kind of, knowing what that kid knows. Because in 7th grade, you got some kids that don't know what help defense is.
Yeah.
They don't know stay line of the ball. They don't know how to keep their back to the basket. So you find yourself teaching these kids this, and then you got some parents that just want to see AAU numbers, right? But it's just like, man, your kid don't know nothing. It is
Yeah.
not a bad thing. It's just like, hey, we gotta rebuild this house, you know
Yeah.
and able to trust that kid. So that's something that we offer, and definitely I like to get the word out as far as what we do. And but we'll have our tryouts probably in February. And what I like to do for each team, I like to get our top 6 players on each team. So when we have tryouts, we're kind of putting the team together around the people that we expect to be there. That's a better process for me because you start seeing all these AAU trials roll around, and I'm like, look, I talk to all these AAU directors. They already got their kids they like. They already got the kids that they building around. So a lot of parents think that their kid taking a big jump where they're going to jump into a situation where they're probably not going to be playing.
Wow. 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 That's good stuff, and it's good clarification,
I'm
and
like,
it's a great thing that y'all are providing to the community, so we don't have to travel all that way. Once again, gentlemen, thank y'all. Oh, Coach Teasley, like you had something to say.
yeah, I wanted to add to that, and I want to say this to parents. Like, when you have programs like Coach and they're close to your areas, pay attention to those programs. I love my family, Durant family. I've been friends with the people at Takeover, Ron that runs that, and even gone back with Aggie and them at Fairfax Stars as well. But we're in a day and age, me coaching AAU this spring and summer. We're in a day and age where you cannot chase these programs because of the name, because the way that the structure of summer basketball is set up is that what we're practicing 2, 3 days a week. Who am I developing in 2, 3 days a week? You understand what I'm saying? So, it's not, I'm not going to, I told my parents that's in the spring. I'm not telling you that your kid's going to come here and I'm going to develop them into this some kind of player. I expect, as being at the EYBL level, my expectation was they would already have a certain understanding that I'm getting a player that will be at a certain level so that we can start at a certain place. But when we can't do that, then you have to start filling those holes, and it takes time. If you're not a kid that don't play, why are you on that team
Mm,
in the summertime? Why are you on that team? You know, I mean, back when I was doing AAU a long time ago, when I met the Kiyomi McMillers before, I would have 12 kids on the team. But a lot of the reason having 12 kids on the team is because we needed to pay for the 2 or 3 that didn't have no money. You understand what I'm saying? You know, but what's not fair to that kid is that
Make it
doesn't
plain,
qualify
coach.
the
Make
kid
it
for the play.
plain.
You know what I'm saying? So I mean, parents, do your research on the coaches.
mm,
Good coaches are good for your kid. They'll learn from them. Don't rush to play for a team because of their branding. Because that doesn't mean your kid's going to get better. And when you're younger, it is. I mean, it's always more important that you play. They need to play. They need to play. And I would keep that at the forefront of that. You're not going to get an extra bonus for winning the EYBL championship at the end of the year. You
right.
know, you're just not going to get it. It sounds good. It's good for reputation for a few weeks after the thing. And guess what? We're on to the next year trying to plan, and it's back to high school. So, If you can find yourself in a place where you can play and they appreciate you, and you have an opportunity to get reps every week, then do that. But you got parents right now considering not even doing any of it because of the fact that it's not a development phase like we used to think it is. It's a planned maximum games. The most development that'll happen over the younger kids. When you get older, we're prepping about playing. We're
Yeah.
prepping about being able to play and win over this weekend. When EYBL is keeping count of your win-loss record so you could be invited in the top group at the end of the year, it's about wins and losses, friend. And so, that's why this thing has changed with the professionalism of college is changing high school. And I got a little extra news for you as well. It's trickling down to the AAU programs where there are some programs that are receiving financial support to get players and their families to come play for their program. Those things are starting to happen. And so, I just be wise and put your kid in the best position that allows them to continue to take the next step every day to get a little bit better. Every day, get a little bit better.
Amen, Coach. Well, we just thank you all again. Y'all are amazing. And also, Coach Sheen, I think your program needs more. I would love to bring you back at some time, Coach Sheen, to help put a spotlight on your program. And of course, Coach Teasley, I think you probably would need a little podcast like us, but anything that we can do for you as well, Coach Teasley, we would love to do it as well. We truly want to thank you and we believe in paying back for anyone who blesses us. So we would love to pay you all back for just gracing our podcast as well. So thank you both.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you guys.
Absolutely.